Hello, Ian Moore from Ian Moore Architects. Welcome to Decoration and Design. So today we're talking about the Strelein Warehouse and the design behind this spectacular building. Why do you think that this particular project resonates so much with people, even now?
I think it's because it's a very simple project in many respects. It has a clarity that people can understand, and whether they love it or they hate it, it's very clear what it is, and it's that simplicity and that lack of clutter and that lack of confusion, I suppose, about its spatial qualities, which people can relate to, whether they're in Australia, whether they're on the other side of the world. It's just one of those projects that seems to have captured people's imagination. And it's also in very large part due to having a great client who actually allows you that freedom to take something from start to finish with a very strong concept, and every single element within that building is basically consistent to that original concept. And you've really got to have a client that understands the process, and because she is a film production designer who's spent many years designing sets and costumes and the whole look and feel of some extraordinary commercials, she understands, and she didn't want to impose her ideas on me. She wanted to come to me because she really loved my work. She trusted my sort of professional ability to interpret her brief in a way that she couldn't necessarily do herself. And it's that unexpected outcome which is really great, because you so often get clients who come to you and they might have a scrapbook, or these days it's a pinboard on Pinterest, or, you know, and some of those are great. You know, they have one or two images that just really define the essence of what they're after, whereas others have got so many different images and they're all conflicting, and it's like putting something in a blender. You know, what you come out with at the end looks nothing like what you put in at the beginning. And so this was one of those projects that didn't have any of that background. It was just a few simple words saying, I want a black and white Ian Moore house with a very large bathtub with great natural light in the bathroom, and that was it. You know?
Sounds like a dream job.
Yeah, so, you know, with a beautiful clarity of brief, it was very simple to actually develop an idea and be allowed to run with it through every single detail down to the last pieces of furniture in the project.
Well, it really fused two worlds together, didn't it? You know, this 19th century, 18th century, right through to the 21st century. And I love that concept of having everything old being white and everything new being black. What were some of the challenges along the way in keeping that heritage aspect of the building and still making it modern?
Well, in many respects, what a lot of architects like is the quality of space that these old warehouse buildings provide. And it's something that's been lost, particularly in the residential world, because, you know, most residential spaces are small cellular rooms, and you never get that big sense of space that you get in a warehouse. So whenever we get an opportunity to find a building that's still got those qualities, you don't want to destroy them. And Carl's and I know one of the things I really despair over is when you see a great warehouse that's then developed as so-called loft apartments, and they end up being tiny little boxes, you know, and that was what we were totally opposed to. We wanted to maintain the integrity of the original space in that warehouse, even though it was changing its use. You know, that's what good adaptive reuse is about. It's taking a space which is appropriate for what you're about to do with it, and not overworking it so that it loses those original qualities. And so it wasn't so much that we were looking for a brick building or a timber building or whatever else. It was that spatial quality. And it was just nice to be able to work with a building that didn't need anything really done to it. It was an additive process more than a subtractive process, which is, you know, I hate going in anywhere, if it's a terrace house right here, and having to demolish so much of it in order to make it into a space like this, whereas here we've got the building that was already like it. It's fantastic, you know.
It sounds like you had a lot of fun on the project. What's your most memorable part of that process?
Oh, I think that there were probably two that were the most exciting. The first was when the steel arrived in big pieces, you know, all welded together. Those big portal frames arrived on huge trucks and got craned into position, because almost instantly you could see what it was going to be like as a finished building. So that was a really important moment for me. And the other was really at the end to see those last pieces of furniture go into position that we had, as I mentioned in my talk, we hadn't initially anticipated those particular pieces being the coffee table and the desk. We had other things in mind, but when we found those pieces of furniture and put them in the space, they were the finishing touches. And so often as an architect, you do an enormous amount of work on a project, but the client will say, oh, we've already got furniture, we're going to bring it in and do it ourselves, and there's a disappointment that either it's not quite the right furniture, or you haven't had an involvement in where it's located or anything, that would really make the space work much better. So here I had that wonderful opportunity to choose every last piece and put it exactly where I wanted it, so that everything is exactly the way I wanted it, and it is still exactly that way now. People walk in and say, oh, how come it still looks like the photographs? And I say, because it was designed to be that way in the first place, and no one wants to change it because it's right.
The furniture is the house.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for your time, Ian.
Okay, my
Cheers.
pleasure. Thank you.